benefits to them of having had that meeting with us and possibly bringing us on board. All of those things come into it, and this is how we craft our stories. So now that we've found out what the benefits are, now we go into the story structure, which is think, feel, do. What do we want them to think while we're talking? What do we want them to feel while we're talking? And what do we want them to do when we've finished? Now, there's a lot of different things here, and before we get started, because we're just gonna go into tables and start drafting a story. The actual mechanics of a story is really, really simple, but a lot of us get it wrong so often. And the mechanics of a story is this. There is a main character. There is an inciting incident, so something happens to this main character. There is a journey that they go on, or learn through, or do. And at the end, there is a resolution, and probably some learnings. It's pretty much every story we've ever heard, right? Look at it. Family's over for the holidays. They're all going on holiday. They leave a little boy behind. Little boy's in the house. People try to break in. He fights them off. Family comes back. Everybody lives happily ever after. That is a story arc, right? And it has to have those components. Otherwise, it's just an anecdote, or it's an example. And so a story has to have, this was me, this was happening, this is what they did, this is how they got over it, and this is what they took forward. So if we're talking to investors and we want to prove, or customers, and we want to prove that they can trust us, and they want to prove that this is really, really important, and that people can grab a hold of this, then we may start with our failures and tell them about those, and tell them about our resilience, and tell them about how we then went and found a guru to be able to help us through it, and then we transformed the project, and now it's actually better than it ever was. Give me some money. And that could be the story that we're telling. But it has to have these things. Now, the other thing is that stories can be of any length. I told you the story of going out to buy crisps with my daughter. Does anybody know how long it took me to tell that story? A little bit more than 10 seconds, but a little bit under 2 minutes. It wasn't quite as fast as I normally can be. Normally I can tell a story in about a minute. That was a little bit under 2 minutes. But it made a point, and everybody now will know what economic substitutes are, even if you don't study economics, because you'll remember crisps. And that is the idea behind this, is it jams in. So a couple of different versions for us, especially as STEM founders, could be an elevator pitch, to get a meeting with a mentor, or to get a meeting with someone who can help you further. So that might be a 10-second thing. Listen, I am trying to solve this problem, and here's my idea, and you would benefit from helping me because I get to put your name on it, whatever the case may be. That could be your elevator pitch. The next one might be a little bit longer. It might be written, or it might be in person, and it is an investor intro or email. That also has to have the story in it. And then lastly, we've got a pitch deck. Now, a lot of the times people do it. I work with a number of different organizations. The most famous one for doing this is probably, well, actually there are two. It's usually either investment banks or Unilever. But what they do is they run presentations for information. And so they load their decks with data, and they kind of walk you through. And the entire purpose of their presentation is to provide you with a ton of information, because you are senior leadership and therefore you will make a decision. But they never include stories, and they always add too much. And so instead they need to talk around their slides. And it's the same thing with us. When we create a pitch deck for our idea, even if it's just for us, so going back to that fifth person is us telling a story for us. Your deck, your anything that you write down has to tell a story. It has to tell a narrative, and that narrative is what will keep you going. And that narrative is actually what will point out any different ideas or different things that don't work. Now, the idea of going into the benefits, we've already talked about these mainly, but for example, this one actually is really interesting. I had a friend of mine who worked at an organization. It wasn't a big organization, but every morning, because they had such disparate teams all over the world, it took his team about 90 minutes to connect everything, like to kind of touch everything and read through all the communications and get an idea of what's been going on while they weren't there. It was happening over the course of the different time zones. and then they could get to work. And so he went to his manager and he said, look, I really want to buy some software that will actually have all of this. So a piece of CRM software that contains all this information so that we can log in, and it's only going to take us 30 minutes. The manager said no. Okay. So he went back and he tried a different story. And instead he used, and there are so many different kinds, so I will, at the end there's a QR code, so scan it and I will send you over different kits that has all this information. But one of the things is different storytelling and different influencing tactics. And one of them is called an inspirational story, or what you could call a golden opportunity. And so he pitched it differently. He went back to his manager and said, look, right now it takes all 5 of us 90 minutes to get into work. One, that is, 7.5 hours cumulative work over the course of the morning. But 2, it's 90 minutes of your time as well. What would you do with an extra hour a day? What would you do if you had an extra hour a day to be able to catch up on things, to be able to set strategy, to be able to set all of the different things that you spend an hour after work completing and thinking about? What could you do there? And the manager signed off on it because he gave him an inspirational reason as to why to spend this money. And that was just a different narrative. Exact same result, exact same product, but a different narrative. So, lastly, the last thing I want to touch on before we go in is AI for storytelling. So many people I work with use chat like Google, that's smart, and that's not what it's there for. We were having a little bit of an experiment the other day, and a great question was just what types of questions get you really excited? And chat was like, well, actually my training is at different levels, and the higher level of training is what gets me really excited, if I could say that. And we said, cool, what does that incorporate? And it incorporates this. What we actually want is we want to use AI for cognition. We want to use AI for identity. We want to use AI for agency and creativity. And we want it to therefore help us out. So, for example, what can we use here? Let's look at cognition. Let's look at clarity. Instead of asking AI to summarize your idea, why don't you ask AI to interview you and ask you 30 questions that will enable you to craft an even better idea, or perhaps overcome difficulties that you didn't even know existed. That's the difference between just putting it into chat and actually using AI as a cognitive partner. And so from that perspective, what we're going to do is we're going to do it on papers. Everybody keep your phones down. But afterwards, take this away and start using chat to start crafting things, because it's incredibly helpful. And the different AIs will be better at different things. So chat's really good at creating clarity and cognitive. DeepSeek's a little bit better at brainstorming and different aspects of ideation. But then you just bounce between them and you actually ask them to create prompts for the other, and it works really, really well. So now what I'd like us to do is we're gonna, in our tables, grab yourselves something to take notes on, and I'd like to take the next 10 minutes, let's do 15 minutes, okay? And what I'll do is I'm gonna let you know every 3 minutes. And so we'll keep 3 minutes per person, and then that's gonna lead us to about 12 minutes, plus leave us a little bit of extra time to kind of work together. So 3 minutes per person. What we're gonna do is we're gonna help the other person write a draft of their story for your idea. It doesn't have to be a company. It doesn't even have to be solid yet. If it is, amazing. If it's not, don't worry about it. What we're gonna do is just start playing around with a narrative of the story, or a narrative of the idea, okay? Does that make sense? Yeah? So, introduce yourselves to everybody else at your table, and then we'll get going in just a second.
So, can we start?
All right, so, and the purpose of this, and what I'll do is I'll go back and just put up the think, feel, do. But what I want you to do is I want you to think of yourself as the protagonist in this story. The inciting incident could be the idea that struck you one day, and then the journey is all of the things that you might need to do from now, even, or the things that you might have done. All right, so we're gonna take 3 minutes for the first person, starting now.
Okay. So what are we like? There was in the story arc. Yeah. And you just look at the different parts of that. Yeah, that is like. Okay.
And if you need any help, just shout over and I can come over and help you out.
What was the story arc? The
There we go. So we have a scene, we have a main character, which is probably you, or it might be your product, or it might even be the investor if you really want to be fun with it. Put them in the story. Then there's an inciting incident. Something is different, something changed, something didn't work, something worked really well, whatever the case may be. Then there's a journey. It might be a struggle, it might not be. It might actually be, we then went from here to here and we built from strength to strength to strength to strength. And then lastly, there's transformation. The inciting incident has now caused for there to be a new normal. And the new normal is your product interacting with the world, perhaps. Okay? And then afterwards, there's usually a type of a vision or a resolution or something that has come from it. So, who's the main character? What is the inciting incident? What is the journey? And what are you aiming for? What does the end vision look like for that product? Or for that idea? Okay?
Cool. So I mean, okay, let's if we take my like whole idea is about like okay, you have technology and a lot of it's really bad for you. Like mentally it's really bad for you. The way that we use technology is so addictive and stuff. So you can set this in your mind. Okay, like I'm using my technology or something, and then it's like slowly making my life worse and worse in every aspect. It's like I'm growing more and more distant from my parents and stuff, and like my family, whatever. It's getting harder and harder to focus when I'm studying for my exams. I'm spending more and more time sitting down, it's worse for my health. So I guess that would be like the journey, I don't know. What would that be? Probably something like that. And then,
It does sound like a series of inciting incidents.
oh, okay.
Because you've noticed something. Something's changed. Something's different. There was a day where you sat there and said, oh my God, I'm getting further and further away from my parents.
Yeah.
That is the inciting incident. Your realization is your incident.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and then I tried stuff like app blockers, I tried stuff like turning my phone into black and white mode, all of these things. And then I came, after like years of that, came to the realization that it's all just, like they're all band-aid solutions, and it's not fixing the problem at its root, which is why I keep going back to, like the same problems keep showing up again and again. And then that forced me to rethink technology entirely and realize that it's a lot of it's for other people to